Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and specifically we're going to talk about which carries Gary Gygax's narrative engine, and how the narrative, Gygax's narrative engine, brought forward in 1974, carried forward in 2021 by Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, has surpassed the book as a narrative engine, okay? Now, what do I mean by a narrative engine? When I'm talking about a narrative engine, I'm talking about when humans use the universal vessel of story to really transform a person, right? Do more than entertain, do more than give knowledge, but to transform them, to change their minds, their hearts, their spirit, to really meet them where they live, right? Where they live intellectually, where they live emotionally, where they live spiritually, right? When you want a piece of art to truly impact a human being in the most profound way that art can impact a human being, that's a narrative engine. When the kernel is a story, right? And for 500 years, for 5 centuries, the book has stood as champion as narrative engine champion, right? And it has never been surpassed until 1974. But in 1974, Gary Gygax made the book a relic for those who wish to use a narrative engine to do what a narrative engine does, to transform the heart, mind, and spirit of a human being, right? To use story at its maximum velocity, right? Now, for a long time, authors did this, right? And I will say, the last one is a keynote. I am an evangelical Christian. The Bible still stands apart. And the reason why the Bible is the Holy Bible doesn't get surpassed by Gary Gygax's work is it's the only book in the world that has to be translated by the Holy Spirit. It's not just a book anybody can read and understand. It can only be understood. It's only unlocked once you have the Holy Spirit, right? But when it comes to just normal human interaction, human author, human experiencer, human reader, right? The book has been surpassed. It's been made a relic by what Gary Gygax accomplished in 1974, bringing forward the Gygaxian narrative engine, right? Which is colloquially understood as a game, colloquially called Dungeons and Dragons, right? It has a true name. Most people don't see it yet, right? And its true name truly is the narrative engine that surpassed shamanic tales, books, screen, and video games, and now stands as narrative engine champion. Any human being who is looking to affect another human being through art, with the kernel of that art being a story, has no option other than Dungeons and Dragons to make the most powerful impact possible, because of what the Gygaxian narrative engine established in 1974. Okay, so how was the book surpassed, right? Well, so there are 5 narrative engines on the planet today. There is shamanic tale, there is book, there is screen, right? There are video games, shamanic tale, book, screen, video games. Oh, and of course the Gygaxian narrative engine. So that's 5, right? So basically, the book is actually the worst. It is the more that I look at it right now, it really is the absolute worst narrative engine that exists in 2021. Now, I know this sounds insulting, and I just want to be clear that the narrative engine, the narrative engine of book was incredibly powerful and incredibly useful for a long time, and I don't want to belittle that in any way. I don't want to that to be a small thing. So basically, let's talk about it, okay? So, how did the book get surpassed? Well, the biggest reason why the book surpassed is, I think the power of the book is there's so many, right? So people go through and they search, and they search really hard, and they find a book that meets them where they're at, right? And there's over 1 million books, right? So you could get something that's close to you, right? But I have a Goodreads book. I've read 580 books to this point, and you can look at the list because it's actually in my comments below, and that's every book I've ever read, right? And I've read 580 books in my entire lifetime, right? But I can tell you, every time I finish a book, I go back to the list and I try to find something that's going to speak to me, and it's hard, right? Now, why is it hard? Well, what the book does is it lets you see through the eyes of an author. And the book, less than any other narrative engine, has no control, has virtually no controls on that author, okay? The only real accepted controls on an author is an editor, and even that breaks down at both ends of the funnel, right? If you don't have a lot of money and you're indie publishing, it's highly likely you're not going to have an editor. Stephen King let us know that once you become incredibly rich, your editors stop editing you. He fired a massive publisher for this exact reason. He said, whatever nonsense I put in front of them, they're like, great job, Stephen, it's going to be great, and they stopped editing, right? So editors are the only controls on authors, right? And editors are incredibly needed, right? I'm a big fan of Gardner Dozois. He's like a champion of science fiction editing. His work is looked at today, and in the world of editing, no one has surpassed him. He is considered one of the greatest science fiction editors that's ever lived. It's its own art skill, right? But the reality is, when an author comes to the page, they can put whatever they want on the page, right? And they put that material down and they put it in front of the reader, right? And the reality is, their experience is right there on the page, but the author has zero ability to control who reads that book. They have zero ability to control when that book is read, and they cannot adjust that content to the expectations, the desires, the needs, or the safety of that experiencer, right? Are you indoctrinating or are you inculcating, right? Or are you inoculating? Are you inoculating or are you indoctrinating, right? You don't know, right? You can't. The author has no ability to adjust that content. It is static, right? Gary Gygax, in the Gygaxian narrative engine that is colloquially known as Dungeons and Dragons, changed this. He said, I am going to give a way for the Dungeon Master to sit in front of the person who will have that story created for them. The world will be crafted to them, right? And in the very second, to the slightest frown, to the slightest smile, my hugely intelligent, hugely confident, hugely capable Dungeon Master will craft the story in real time, protect the safety, meet the expectations, fulfill the needs, fulfill the desire of the experiencer, and the book is left in the dust. In 1974, Gary Gygax made the book a relic. It's nothing now compared to his glorious Gygaxian narrative engine, right? I want to make this super clear. I owe incredible success in my life to books. I owe the greatest joy of my life to one book, the Holy Bible. I'm an evangelical Christian. I'll be in heaven forever. I hope you're there with me, right? And if you ever have any questions about getting there with me, please reach out. I will answer that. Just put it right in the comments. I'll answer it immediately, right? As soon as I possibly can. But I just want you to realize, and also, I just spent this year spending $600 to collect the Orange Spine Easleys, a collection of 1980s books from Gary Gygax, and few things in my life bring more joy to me than the book. But when you see the truth, you must declare it, no matter how painful it is. And the reality is, it is so shockingly clear that books are no longer a narrative engine for modern humanity, right? And that the Dungeon Master, Dungeon player relationship is unparalleled by shamanic tale, by book, by screen, by video game. They cannot touch it because no narrative engine that has ever been created is as fast, adaptable, malleable, valuable, powerful as the Gygaxian narrative engine, colloquially known as Dungeons and Dragons. This is a hard reality that we all have to embrace. And I will say, after 5 centuries of incredible, intellectual wealth, that's been an intellectual value and power that has been accrued to the book, it's hard to see it fall, right? But it has fallen. All that's my opinion. What do you think? Do you see it? Do you see that the book's been surpassed? And that the inception of the Gygaxian narrative engine, the capabilities of it. One, I'm starting to believe that the Gygaxian narrative engine is the future of psychology, right? The current model, $200 an hour. Questions answered with questions, right? No real answers at the end of the day. And even if the answer is there, a professional who is often positioned not to give you the answer, right? There are already people using the Gygaxian narrative engine for therapy. They shouldn't. It's not ready, right? Hasn't been accepted, but it's being done, right? And I think they're seeing something. I really think that the Gygaxian narrative engine, when it's fully understood, will topple psychology, psychiatry like a domino. It's so clear to me. All that's my opinion. Love to hear your thoughts. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.